Rick Hong here for the Hollywood Critics Association. Today, I'm with cinematographer Jessica Lee Gagné, and we are talking her show, Severance. Jessica, I wanted to tell you congratulations. I love this series, and I'm not just saying it because you're sitting across from me. I truly do. I think it's one of the best series of like 2022.
Thank you. I'm glad you like the show.
So, I got to start, with just the fact that, I was thinking in my brain, I was like, how did she become a part of this? And then I looked at your credits and I was like, oh, Escape at Dannemora. So I was wondering at what point, this project came to you. I don't know if it was like when you were there or it came to you a little bit afterwards.
Ben started talking about it right after Escape at Dannemora. So I think he'd been working like along this with the scripts for a while, but he started talking about this show, and then it was like, oh, I'd like you to like read this thing, and he has a lot going on, and at one point it came back in the picture, and then it became real in 2019, pretty much.
So was it just the pilot that you read? And I would love to know like what you thought, just to look at it on paper, because I'll tell you like after your answer how I got hooked.
Well, I read it at first. I don't think I truly visualized it, and I was a little afraid of it, just it being an office show, which is kind of what I'm telling a lot of people I find these days, is I didn't want to do it, and I was afraid of it being an office thing. I read scripts thinking of locations. I'm a very location-based person. I love shooting on location. I don't really love sets and stages. So when I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a DP nightmare. And I don't know that I want to do this after Escape, which was so, real and raw and like a lot of real locations. And this felt like the complete opposite. So it scared me.
I imagine that there's comfort knowing that you've worked with Ben and you have like that shorthand possibly.
Yeah. And what's great about Ben is he's an immense collaborator. He definitely gives people around him room, obviously he reins you in when you're going in the weird direction or the wrong direction for him, but he gives people a lot of space to create. And then he makes like the best choices out of it all. I feel like the humor of it, I don't know that I knew it was funny and weird, but like I'm a very unfunny person. So I don't think I didn't really get all of that jazz out of it. But I don't know. I think Ben did such a tremendous job with the cast. We all had like it kind of felt like we had little to work with in terms of like, oh, okay, you have like an office, you have a big empty room, and this is it. Like you got to be really, really creative. But to see what each four of those actors did, and to be able to look at the nuances and the details, like Adam's performance floored me. Just being able to see it all as a package, like in the entire season. I kind of went off on your question there, but like I feel
no.
that work that they did was so important and brought so much to it. And you just can't read those things, Everyone who worked on Severance brought something special, like set deck, props, production design, and then even like grips, electric, everyone kind of brought something of theirs. And because it was such a blank canvas, when something was on screen, like for example, if you want to talk about color, like, okay, we have white walls and every day these people show up to work with an outfit. Like that's your color blocking moment. So, every single decision is important. And if you're doing a shot of the desk, there's one pen on the desk and like that pen is important, so everyone that had to put something in front of that camera had to make a bold choice. And that was just the nature of this show.
And then, Aoife McArdle did a bunch of episodes as well. So like, how was it going from the transition of working with Ben and then with her? Or were you already like, hey, I'm already good for the episodes that I've done, so working with her shouldn't be too problematic for me either? Or just completely just different anyways?
I mean, they're completely different people and have completely different approaches. However, I think that's great in a show like this because we are like 9 episodes in this world, and it was quite refreshing to actually have someone who would come in with a completely new bag of ideas. I mean, her process in a way is actually quite similar to Ben's in terms of she's very involved in prep and, she does a lot of work before coming to set. But yeah, I think it was a really good thing in terms of just a fresh outlook, in terms of this repetition that we have every time. But I didn't find it particularly challenging.
Can you talk to me then about kind of your process as a cinematographer?
I definitely have a very intensive process. I start very, very, very early. I think I was the first person hired on the show. Yeah, pretty much. Like, except for the showrunner and Ben. So, you know, I do a lot of visual research, a lot of like movie research, and Ben and I like collaborate a lot in that way just to kind of find our language. But the main thing, and this goes back to what you were saying before with like what the first thing I told Ben that I wanted was I want to shoot the entire thing. I knew he wasn't going to shoot the entire thing. And I was like, I want to do the whole thing. I want to if we can make that happen, I think it's important, just to make sure that is like the aesthetics, like maintain the whole way through. And also, you know, make sure that we're not repeating things and that things are different and that they're still like moving forward visually. So that was a big part of the process too. We did need to like hire another DP who shot little scenes here and there, a friend of mine, because at one point we were so behind with COVID that we needed to shoot 2 units simultaneously. So that happened, but still, like, I mean, it wasn't that much of it. So yeah, I don't know if that speaks to the process, but it definitely spoke to like the way, you know, that we shot the whole thing. And then in terms of developing the looks, like that came naturally with Ben. Before Aoife was on board, you know, we had already kind of like created the language and about like, how are we going to shoot the inside world? How are we going to shoot the outside world? They have very different aesthetics. And that just comes through a lot of conversations and a lot of like, what's the word? There's a lot of room for improvising as well. You know, Ben's very driven by watching the actors rehearse and like sometimes they'll come in with like a general idea of something or like, oh, he has like something in mind for a shot. But most of the time it's about watching the actors, giving them space to create themselves and then doing what the best coverage is for them. But we did really shoot this like a television show in a weird way. Like it's very coverage based, and it gives room to the story because we did it like that. You know, I don't think it wasn't about the shot. It was about like the scene. I don't know.
Amazing. But then I know sometimes like when things go into post, you know, certain things have to change. Or so I don't know if you're already ahead of that game or if you as they go into post and they start editing, maybe there's like saturation here or there. Like, do you see a lot of your stuff change or does a lot of it stay the same? Or you're already in tune with that? So you're like, okay, this is how this is going to look because like, I know this is how it eventually look.
Yeah, we definitely know what it's going to look like from the beginning. I mean, there's 2 components to that answer. Like I'm very into making sure the entire creative crew knows what the show will look like. So there's a process of testing, which I usually will do like 3 phases for in prep. The first one is about camera and lenses. The second one is incorporating a bit more production design, which is color, texture, contrast. And then the third one involves more sets and actors and all of that, which is a bit even more pushing towards like costume makeup, and which Ben gets really involved in at that point, you know. But it's important that everyone views these tests throughout the process because everyone needs to kind of understand what the final product will be. For me, because like I know we will modify the look quite a bit. You can look on camera. We have a DIT who's live grading everything, so everyone's seeing it as it's happening. But if you're going to bring the right color to set, like you need to know before you start shooting, right? So that's part of that process. And I work with the same colorist, Tom Poole, who's amazing. And I think he's a huge part of why my work looks a specific way and why Ben's work also looks a specific way now, because he is there from the beginning to the end, you know, and like he will definitely, like we do change it a little bit. It's not like the tests are exactly what the show will look like, but they're very close. And we just refine it and make it the best it can be in post with him. And then visual effects, like that is Ben's department. Like he is all up in there. And definitely like there's a lot of removing, you know, and there's a lot of, it's more refining, I think, work that we're doing. A lot of the stuff was done in camera in terms of the effects, the transitions and all that. We did a lot of like live stuff. But like the exterior world is that actually where I think, you know, they did a lot of the work that's more obvious, you know, like it was more about taking away things or and recreating an environment, you know. When Mark's like cleaning his gutter, behind him, you see this town that's not a real town, right? But like elements of where we shot other things like the car going over the bridge, which is actually not even a real car going over the bridge, like that's a comp. but like that bridge is put into the shot, like far, far away. If you pause it, you'll see it. And it's the same bridge that like Mark drives across, which is a bridge like in upstate New York. And all these things are like part of the early conversations. Like they don't just like happen in post. Like it's all something that, you know, Ben talks about and wants to see developed. And he's like, depends on the production designer to also bring ideas in there. And it's all a big world.
Did you have a favorite place that you like, were like, I can't wait to try to shoot, like to try to like do this? Or I don't know if it was like Lumen itself or, you know, just.
I mean, Lumen's amazing. That's an Aero Saarinen building. When we saw that place, found it on Google Earth even, like, and I remember sending Ben like the Google Earth of it. And I'm like, can we go there? And we went there like the next day and we're like, that's the location, you know? But it was just obvious. We just stopped all research after that and was like, well, this is it. No one had shot fiction work there, I believe, or they hadn't actually used the building. Like they had just used like the basement, which makes no sense to me. But it was the world that like just pushed everything forward once we had that.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I was wondering, like, I was like, where is that place? What is that place? That's awesome. You just told me that. That's amazing.
But it's it's called Bell Labs, and it was actually a place where they used to develop technology like in the 60s or something like that. So it's like got like a weird like link to what the show is.
So then, I mean, can you watch for enjoyment? Is it like, I mean, is it, or do you find yourself distracted looking at stuff and just kind of like, okay, you know, like, I mean, because the story is just so amazing, but you know, you have such a specific skill set, you know, so like, I don't know sometimes if it's like, if you're the one that's actually involved with the project, it's kind of like you look at it a different way.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of does that. You know, when you worked on a project, you break it down. The problem is when you worked on image, it's kind of hard because it's just like the whole thing, you're just constantly seeing the things that bother you. And I constantly remember moments of shooting. And it was a tough shoot because we shot during COVID, which wasn't easy. So there's a lot of anecdotes and I find it very, very, very difficult to watch it. But I have to say that when I watched episodes 7 through 9, it was the first time I think I was able to watch something I did in such short time. Like since we've shot it hasn't been that much time for me. And then I was like, wow, okay, this is like actually like this freaking works, Ben. Like this is like good TV.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's like me when I do my interviews, I go back and I watch and like when I can edit, I'm like, great. If I watch the whole thing all the way through, sometimes I'm like, ooh. So I was wondering that. So I have to tell you, congratulations again. Thank you so much. Like everything that you've told me today has been so enlightening. Congratulations on being a part of an amazing project. And like, I literally cannot wait to see what you're on next.
Oh, thank you.